I'm blind now, but it's fine.
Can you see me?
I just see a tiny little shape flailing about.
Is that a short joke?
It was a short joke, yes. Hi, everybody.
And welcome to our podcast.
Mm-hmm. It's been a little bit of a break for us, but we're back. And we're back to talk about something that is, for the fan base, equally part sacred and for a lot of people annoying, because some of you Monty Python fans are a bit much. But
Very much. I would have to say that I'm one of those people that are probably a bit much, but that's just because of how I was raised, and I blame my father.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of daddy issue that most people would probably respect.
Yeah. But we are going to talk about Monty Python today, classic British television show from the 70s, carrying on into their films that lasted all the way until the early 1980s. And I don't know if they were still touring.
They were, and then, I think they stopped up into the, by the time I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
So 2014-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
around that time, maybe. I could be wrong, too.
No, I do know, when I was looking at stuff, I saw at least as late as 2014 they were still doing it. But, I think we're going to come at this very differently, because for a lot of people who came after Monty Python, they were introduced to Python by their fathers.
Yep.
I wasn't.
Nope. You were around that age group that, probably watched it as it was going on, right? Or because, you're old, right? You got gray in your beard. You're old. You just took your glasses off.
Mm-hmm.
Your teeth coming out, man?
No, I got a new denture thing that's extra strength.
Extra strength, extra glue.
Mm-hmm.
Duct tape in there too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you good?
I'm good.
You sure?
Uh-huh.
Rub some Spam on it?
My dad, there were quite a few things my dad didn't introduce me to that my friends' fathers did. Star Trek being the other big one.
Mm-hmm.
And Monty Python. I would hear the Monty Python jokes.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine singing the Lumberjack song. And
I love the Lumberjack song.
I had no idea what the hell it was. But I would get it stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Even though he got it wrong. The lyrics were, he didn't. But
I honestly still get the Lumberjack song wrong, but it's the fact that, I'm a lumberjack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the fact of just doing the movement and having the idea of this gruffy guy in a plaid shirt and looking like Paul Bunyan, and that's honestly what you think of Minnesotans or Canadians, and just your backwoodsmen.
Mm-hmm.
My ideal, man. Hi, Tucker. Yeah.
And funnily enough, one of Python is from right here where we're at as we record.
Yeah.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah, buddy.
Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, he's so funny, and he's not the one that passed away.
No, Terry Jones did.
Terry Jones did. Rest in peace. Yeah. Which I cry. It makes me so sad hearing when they pass away, because I'm like, no.
Yeah, and they're all at that age now where it's not going to be that much longer.
I know, but it's you don't get comedic geniuses like that.
No, and you see John Cleese, and you're like, you've got the energy of somebody way younger than you are.
Right.
I don't, I want to ask him what his secret is, since he and I are the same age. But...
I know, right? And you're looking pretty well for, an ancient, relic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But tell me about you being introduced to Monty Python.
So I was introduced to it by my dad, because he was born in 1965. He grew up with Monty Python being played at his house, and, he grew up watching, the Knights, the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He went and saw it in theaters, and then when he got it on VHS tape, he made us kids watch it growing up. And I distinctly remember being lost in Target, and when I couldn't find my dad, distinctively I stopped, and the first thing that came to mind was, I'm a knight who says "knee!" and very loudly screamed "knee." And that's how my dad found me. So for as long as I can remember, my dad has always used jokes from Monty Python. We've watched sketches, we've watched, movies, The Life of Brian, just anything Monty Python. Like, even till this day, like, if I'm having a bad day, I'll text my dad, and it will just be like, I shall say "me" again to you if you do not appease us. Just random stupid crap. And it's just because, that's me, my dad's sense of humor.
Yeah.
Very dry, very sarcastic, very, just very dumb.
Which, funnily enough, that is kind of my dad's and my sense of humor. And my dad was born in 1949. So he actually would have been the right appropriate age for being into Monty Python at the time, but I don't know what the broadcast history in the United States was for Monty Python at the time. I don't know if it was imported later on or what, but it was a thing that I never once heard him ever mention. But my dad also is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Lame. My father's lame. I distinctly remember when I was in my mid-20s, I was wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt.
Yep.
And he looked at me and he said, "Who's Pink Floyd?" And I was like, "Motherfucker, you were supposed to teach me that."
Yeah, my dad was not. My dad was, he was into Monty Python, and then, when him and my mom divorced, he was into divorced dad rock. So we would be listening to, me and my brother, we would be about 5, 6, very young kids. We'd be listening to Nickelback, or we'd be listening to Rush. So I knew Rush from a very young age, and I've always loved Rush. But going back to Nickelback, I'd be singing "I've been down to the bottom of every bottle," singing that, "This is how you remind me," at the age of 5, from a very young age. And then, of course, he gets remarried, and they have 2 more kids. And when, my younger sister is 5 years old, they're singing "The wheels on the bus go round and round." And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what happened to my cool dad? So my younger sisters have no idea who Nickelback or Rush or Monty Python are. And I'm like, what happened to you? You were so cultured, So my dad used to be cool. I mean, he's still cool to me, but...
Oh, my dad's still not cool. No, I got my love of literature and of classic movies and TV from my dad. But also kind of almost like I would stumble on things myself, and then he would go, "Oh yeah, that's a thing."
Yeah.
Like Andy Griffith or I Love Lucy, those were just shows that were on. So it wasn't so much that he sat me down and showed them to me. It was that he would find me watching them, and he would connect with me that way.
Yeah, my dad, he wasn't necessarily forcing it upon us, but it was more like, I want to spend time with my kids. This is what we're going to watch, And he didn't necessarily think it was inappropriate either, but he also, that's how he kind of grafted me and my brother's sense of humor. So me and my brother have more of a dry and sarcastic sense of humor because of it, though. So we are very much the sarcastic and funny siblings, whereas my 2 younger sisters, I would say they do have good sense of humor, but I would say that me and my brother probably have the more outlandish sense of humor, willing to take more risk than they are. And I think that solely has to do with Monty Python.
As you've gotten older, is Monty Python as dear to you as it was?
I would say that it is in some retrospect. As I've gotten older, I think I can appreciate more of the jokes. Just because, like, in The Meaning of Life, I was laughing hysterically at the scene where the lady's trying to give birth to a baby, and they're making fun of, like, all of the medical equipment and how expensive it is, and then they just leave her there, and they're just like, oh, we're just gonna do this for show, make sure the most expensive machinery is in here, make sure that, we'll leave you this expensive bill. And they literally just don't do anything.
Yeah. And see, for me, not having been introduced to it by my father, not having grown up with it, I came into it like I was house sitting for a friend when I was 19. She had a copy of Holy Grail. And I was like, oh, I've heard of this thing. And I watched it and I laughed hysterically at it. And eventually found Life of Brian, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I love Life of Brian. And
with the show, there was a lot of the stuff that I watched specifically for the first time for this. And I felt like all of these contrasting feelings, because some of it's great, a lot of it's not.
Well, what's funny about that is that Family Guy actually makes a joke about how Monty Python, like, girls don't even like Monty Python. And then Meg chimes in and is like, I don't even understand Monty Python, not even the good bits. Or something along those lines. I might be butchering it, but at the same time, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I understand the good bits. I like the good bits. Just ignore the bad bits.
Well, and even the good bits, there's a little bit of familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm not as likely to laugh at them because I know them so well.
Right.
And then they'll do something stupid, like one of the things that I laughed at the hardest was Slapping with Fish.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's such a little, like, 30-second bit.
Yeah.
And it's so stupid, and the punchline is so good that it makes me continue to giggle. Ministry of Silly Walks.
Yep.
Makes me laugh. But the parrot sketch at this point...
The parrot sketch, I have a love-hate relationship with the parrot sketch. The thing that makes it great is John Cleese. Strictly because of the fact that he takes the parrot and goes, Polly! It just starts banging it. That's the part that gets me. The rest of it I could do without.
It's like, I thought it was really funny the first time I saw it, but then everybody fucking quotes it, which runs it into the ground, which by the time you watch it again, you're like, yeah.
See, like, I do like the parrot sketch. I like the spam sketch. I can do without the Minister of Silly Walk sketch. See, like, the sketches, I feel like they're hit or miss. I feel like where they really went into having good content was in their movies. But that was when they actually had somewhat of a storyline. So, like, Holy Grail and Life of Brian. And I hate to say that because that makes it 2 movies.
That is exactly how I feel, actually. Is that when there's because the through line, especially Holy Grail, is not... Life of Brian has much more of a story.
Yeah.
Holy Grail, it's like it's a series of sketches, but they're just Arthurian sketches. Both very funny movies with great bits, with bits where you're like, and sometimes just, I mean, I watched Life of Brian with Heather to prepare for this. And we're laughing and stuff. And then the part where he, like, falls off the roof and into a spaceship. And there's just this little detour that goes absolutely nowhere. And at the end of it, she's like, what the hell was
That's just Monty Python. That's just Monty Python.
But which we should mention the 6 members.
Yep.
John Cleese, Eric Idle, Graham Chapman, the Terrys, Gilliam and Jones, and the great Michael Palin.
Yep. I love Michael Palin. He's probably the most attractive member. Sorry. He just is.
Mm-hmm. I can see it.
He's the prettiest member.
I don't know. Terry Gilliam, I was watching a documentary about Monty Python. Terry Gilliam was a pretty man in his day.
In his day, he was.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Palin's the prettiest.
Michael Palin's the one when you grow old you want to look like
yes.
him.
Yes.
Which one is your favorite as far as the members go?
I have a hard time with this one because I think they're all very talented retrospectively.
Mm.
I've always had a bias towards Eric Idle, just because I think he's, talented, and I think as a young girl, I remember distinctively remembering his voice, just hearing him in like cartoons, because he was in Quest for Camelot, and he played one of the heads of the two-headed dragon.
That is a movie I have not thought about in
a
very long time.
And he was just very funny in it, and I remember it, and I really loved him in that. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been a little biased towards him because of that. So I would have to say it's a toss-up between Eric Idle, John Cleese, and probably Michael Palin.
Mm. And this would be a tough one for me too, because it depends on if we're just talking about Monty Python or we're talking about outside of Monty Python. Because if we're talking about outside of Monty Python, my favorite is Terry Gilliam. Yeah. Because he went on to be a director, and he's directed some amazing movies. Like,
he's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being probably too young to go see 12 Monkeys and having my little mind blown by it. Mm-hmm. And I identify with his twisted, weird way of looking at things.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is that I never realized that he was the one behind the artwork until I watched the documentary. And I thought that was amazing because I do artwork too, and some of the things that I will draw or do is odd and weird too. I don't ever post it because it's odd and weird, and I don't really necessarily want people to see it. And no, it's not furries. Flashback.
Comment below if you would like to see her artwork in the next episode.
Comment below if you think James is crazy. Anyway, but no, I connect with that. I think he's very creative, and I think that, someone who's from Minnesota who has that, perspective is really cool. And he even directed Life of Brian, didn't he?
Or at least Terry Jones did, or they co-directed it.
Yeah.
But I get really torn because Eric Idle almost takes the top spot just for always look on the bright side of life.
Yeah.
And Michael Palin almost takes the top spot for the biggest dickus moment in Life of Brian. But if I had to pick one just who I think is the funniest, it's John Cleese. And I think for me anyway, it's because everybody else in Python, you would see them, their humor is very, very silly. Cleese played it straight. Every time. I mean, that to me is like the thing that makes the Ministry of Silly Walks sketch is the fact that he never cracks a smile. Like he looks just like he's walking to work, and he never ever. There's no hint of him trying to be silly, which makes the silly walk even funnier.
Right, and I mean, I don't want to discredit him. I think he's very, I think he's a genius. I think he's very funny. I have a hard time with John Cleese because of the fact that he, like, so I have a hard time with John Cleese because of the fact that when I see his sense of humor, it's like it comes off very, how do I say it? I'm trying to think of a way of how I'm trying to say this. Like, it's funny, but at the same time it's very intimidating in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm trying to laugh, but at the same time it's like, whoa,
Well, and then like the stuff he would go on to do, like Faulty Towers.
Yeah.
Where his character is just angry all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny show. It's a little exhausting because he's always at an 11.
Right, and the fact that he can do that, it's great, but at the same time, the fact that he can bring that intensity, it's so exhausting.
Like in Life of Brian, when his Roman guard catches Brian doing the graffiti.
Yeah.
And he's, instead of killing him, he's admonishing him for his grammar.
Yeah, he's like, do it this way, and you have to do it, how many more times,
do it 100 times or we'll cut your balls off.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's just...
he's just so committed to it.
It kind of makes me feel like, no, you know what? Reminds me of, it's my dad. That's why it's intimidating. It's my dad. If my dad was going to be a comedian, John Cleese is my dad. Hey, Daddy.
I think that you're right, at least for me, is when it's... And I was interested, like I said, I watched the movies first. And at least Holy Grail and Life of Brian. When you get into And Now for Something Completely Different and The Meaning of Life, you're going back to sketches. It becomes more hit and miss.
Yeah.
Meaning of Life has got some great stuff in it.
Yeah, it does.
It's also got sketches where you're just like, is this still going on?
Right. Well, that's the thing too, is that, I could watch Meaning of Life as background noise.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then stop completely what I'm doing for the, sketches that I want. That's the thing that kind of frustrates me about that movie, because it's like, when I want to go and watch a Monty Python movie, I'm not going to put on Meaning of Life. Right. I'm going to put on, either Life of Brian, or I'm going to put on, Holy Grail.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they make me laugh. They make me sit down and they grab my attention.
Well, and then I've only watched it now for something completely different once, and it's mostly the sketches from the show, but filmed with no audience. And when the audience isn't there to laugh,
it's hard.
The sketches fall a little flat.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, that it's like, I'll watch it and I'll still laugh at it, but at the same time it's so eerie. Mm-hmm. Not hearing the audience. Mm-hmm. It would be like watching a sitcom and not having the audience behind it.
Well, and you can do that. I mean, there are sitcoms that don't have any laugh track, but then but some shows are made specifically for that. I mean, if you were to watch I Love Lucy without the audience laughter, it would be weird.
Yeah.
But you watch, I don't really like The Office, but I like 30 Rock. You watch 30 Rock, if that had an audience laugh track in it, it would be weird. So it's like they took the sketches and they just thought, we don't have to change anything about these. We'll just film them. But without audience laughter, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. So, but to me, that also goes with one of the things that I have a hard time with Monty Python sometimes is some of the sketches are so silly that they don't make any sense.
Right.
Like there is where I'm watching it going, there's a joke in here somewhere. You guys think it's funny, clearly, but I don't get what it is.
I mean, we also got to keep in mind, it was like the 60s and 70s, so maybe they were tripping on something.
That is possible, too, yes.
So, I mean, I didn't do any research to know if I know that Graham was an alcoholic, but I don't know if any of them were tripping on acid or anything at that point in time.
It's entirely possible.
But it's very possible.
But the other thing is, sometimes the sketches, the one that sums it up for me best is the history of ballooning. Because it goes on and on and on. And I'm just like, and there are funny bits in it, but then it's like, History of Ballooning Part 4, and I'm like,
stop.
Please just stop it. And it's like, I think that is most of that episode.
Yeah.
Is just that one joke. And that I think that was the 4th season. By then John Cleese was like, between Graham Chapman's alcoholism and he just felt like the sketches weren't as funny, so he left.
Yeah. I don't blame him for that.
No, I think because if I had to pick like a favorite like sketch team in the spirit of Monty Python, it would be Kids in the Hall. Mm-hmm. And they suffered a lot of the same problems. If you watch, it's not so much the new version that they did a couple of years ago, but the original series. Some of it you can tell is jokes they thought were funny, mm-hmm. and they don't care if anybody else thinks they're funny, which there's something Andy Kaufman-esque admirable about that.
Yeah.
But some of it was like, you watch like a documentary about them, and it's like, some of them were going, I don't even know what we were doing. He wrote that one, and he insisted that we do it, and it's like, I didn't even get it. And,
right.
There wasn't like, they all, and I'm assuming it's probably very much the same for Monty Python. I think this is funny, we're going to do this, and everybody else is going, okay, but
yeah,
this is literally just to make you laugh.
Yeah. It's like, why would you object your audience, your followers, to something that only you think is funny, mm-hmm. but not your audience? When you're a creator, that's something that you gotta keep in mind, that even if you think something is funny, mm-hmm. your audience may not. You always got to keep in the back of your mind, what is your audience going to be thinking? What are they going to want to see? And that's the thin line that is always hard. And you can't be so selfish that you choose yourself completely when you're creating content. And that is something that is very frustrating.
I mean, again, you can if you're Andy Kaufman and you just don't care.
Yeah, you can, but at the same time, that's when you damage your career.
Yeah. And I also try to keep in mind this show is from before my time, and it's also from another country.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thing about England, especially at that time, was everybody was still very stuffy and everything.
I think they were trying to break out of that too.
The youth culture definitely was at the time. But so I think there's a lot of English humor that is just silly as a almost cathartic psychological break from that kind of stuffiness.
Yeah, even in the documentary, they had mentioned that, many of them were trying to, many of them had gone to boarding schools, mm-hmm. And everything, and had been abandoned, mm-hmm. Because of the war. And, after they had become adults, they wanted to break out of, that stiff, upbringing and everything, and that they needed some sort of release. So yeah, you're right that it is that cultural break of being like, no, we don't want to be having mm-hmm. sticks up our asses anymore, like, leave us alone, like, we're gonna do what we need to do to say F you to the to the man.
And back then all you had to do to say F you to the man was be silly and you know, I mean some
or
of
be the Beatles,
or be the Beatles, which you know, I mean, for us, like when people say, "Oh, the Beatles," it was like a revolutionary thing, and we're like, "This is the most tame fucking music."
Yeah, but you know, even though we saw it as, you know, tame, we also had like Chuck Berry, we had Elvis, we had, you know, Muddy Waters, we had a whole bunch of music revolution of our own, and then we had our own comedy stints and everything going on over here. So England was slowly following behind us, and they had, you know, Monty Python and the Beatles.
Which maybe they checkmated us
Yeah.
sometimes. But
yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to class, I think they honestly, in some shape or form, I think they outdid us a little bit.
Well, and at least for me, part of it with because I like a lot of British humor. I identify with it because my father was raised by immigrants, so that sense of humor is not that far removed from me, and but it goes along with a lot of British music too that I like, which is weird. I like progressive rock.
Yeah.
I like you know, stuff where you're watching and you're going, what the fuck is happening?
Right.
And it's the Brits always embraced surrealism in a way that we didn't, because we, I think, are more literal minded people than they are. And so that break, even when it's not necessarily, there'll be stuff where in Monty Python where I don't necessarily think it's funny, but I'm surprised by the audacity of just them going. The one sketch which I don't fucking understand is, it's John Cleese and Michael Palin, and they're doing French accents, and there's a picture of a sheep, and they just start taking it apart, and there's like engine parts inside of the sheep, and I'm just sort of like, I don't know what's happening.
If it makes you feel any better, I have no idea what's going on in that sketch either. It's one of those things where it's just kind of like, I'm just gonna let you do you.
But I think that is another one where at first I'm like, what is this? And then by like minute 5, I'm like, okay, you're doing the French gibberish, and you know, I got it.
Yeah. I will have to say, I do kind of love that they make fun of the French in a lot of their sketches. And
they were just far enough removed from World War II to where they were still poking at the Germans.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the French are a frequent target.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, one of my favorite in Holy Grail is the fact of, I send that gif to you quite often. Like, do not torment me again, you English pig dog. It's one of my favorites. It's
that kind of, I think, can transition us to those two movies specifically, because Meaning of Life and Now for Something Completely Different, they're just an extension of the show because they're sketches. But Holy Grail and Life of Brian, I think, are two of the funniest movies ever made. I have come to appreciate Life of Brian more.
Yeah.
I think maybe because it does have more of a clear story to it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I said, with Holy Grail, it's almost like it's sketches. They're just all Camelot related.
I think that, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, no, I have to agree, and I hate it. I hate it because it's like, Holy Grail was the very first Monty Python I ever saw, and I didn't really realize it didn't really have a story until now, and I hate it.
You're welcome. It's still a fantastic movie.
It is, because, like, I'm thinking, one of the, like, parts of the movie that I'm thinking about, like, aggressively right now is when they are, going through the countryside, and they go past some peasants, and they come across a beggar woman, and she's in the field, and Graham is like, well, I am your king. Well, I didn't vote for you.
You don't vote for a king.
Well, I just love that, because I would so be that woman and being like, look at me, I'm being repressed. But I just thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that's a sketch. That's a sketch.
the burn the witch part, which has nothing to do with anything
Camelot,
else.
No. She turned me into a newt. I got better.
And that is like the moments for that movie that shine for me are more when they do the whole Camelot dance.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts back to Graham Chapman. He's just like, never mind, it's a silly place. And they just walk away.
Let's just go. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, the whole point was to get to Camelot and then find the Holy Grail.
And between, and like I said, it's like it follows a different Night of the Round Table. It's all funny, like John Cleese murdering everybody.
Yeah, it's like I'm here to save the princess. Well, I'm here. You're not a girl, but I need to be saved. Fuck you.
And I always really liked Michael Palin showing up at the nunnery.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm ready to. We must be spanked. Oh, I don't need to be saved. I want to be here. No, you don't need to save me. No, you don't need to save me. No.
You're in danger. I don't think I am.
You must spank her. Oh my gosh, that just is such. It has so many great parts in it, and if you have no idea what we are talking about, you might as well go and watch the movie right now. Just stop the podcast. Go watch the movie right now. It's great.
Oh, there'll be clips, but
yeah.
But I loved that movie, and then I found out about Life of Brian from the weirdest place, which is
a nunnery.
Not far off, actually.
Your mother.
That is the exact opposite of a nunnery. I was going to be a priest, and
hold up, what?
I was going to be a priest. Yes. When I was 19 years old, I went to my local parish. I talked to the priest, and I was like, I want to join the priesthood. And I apprenticed with a mentor for a while, and I actually went to college to study psychology because you had to have a psychology degree to be a priest. I never got to the seminary because I realized I liked sex.
And feet.
Not wrong. Hi, Heather. We
can cut that out.
Can we?
Yeah.
But I was going to be a priest. He gave me my priest gave me all of this material, and he gave me this video about how Hollywood was trying to corrupt us. And so they would show clips of like movies that they would say were anti-Christian, like Last Temptation of Christ or whatever. And then there were clips of Life of Brian in there. And they'd show a clip, and then it would cut to like the very serious narrator guy's like, can you believe they think that's funny? And I'm just sitting there laughing, dying laughing. And going, where is this movie?
I almost wish that you had a camera to film yourself watching this, because that sounds like a movie in itself. Mm-hmm. Like, because that is the funniest shit I've heard ever. The fact that you almost became a priest, and what stopped you is the fact that you is Life of Brian.
Kind of is one of the, because I literally was there watching this video going, wow, these people take this really seriously.
They're priests. What do you think would happen? They don't believe in movies. They believe, in monogamous marriage, and they believe in molesting altar boys. They're gonna show people our podcast and say, these people are terrible people. They are going to hell. Look what they said about us.
I mean, part of that's true, but but honestly, it just got to a point for me where I was like, I that was actually one of the things that kind of killed my desire to be a priest was like, because I had seen Last Temptation of Christ and I liked I'm like, these people do not understand what that movie is about. But then it got to like Life of Brian and I'm like, this is so clearly not making fun of Jesus. Brian's not Jesus in it. He was born next door to, and actually like the parts where Jesus is in it are treated
very
completely seriously. Like the birth and then the Sermon on the Mount are the only two times that you see him in the movie, and both times are treated like we're not making fun of him. Now let's cut to the back of the crowd where they can't hear him very well, and blessed are the cheesemakers.
I love that part because it's like they're sitting there and they just can't hear him, and then they cut to the fact that, you know, oh, shut up, Big Nose. You just called me Big Nose. And they both significantly have, like, the same size nose. And I was like, do you see how stupid it is to make fun of, like, your neighbor? Mm-hmm. Like, it is just so stupid.
Well, and even just, like, my favorite line in that whole bit is when the woman realizes, oh, blessed are the meek. Well, that's nice. They have a hell of a time. And, like, it's just people who are like, they're not getting it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, but there is a moment of profound insight in that movie when people decide that he is the Messiah. Mm-hmm. And he loses a shoe, which they pick up and it's like, this is the symbol of our religion. And then
they start chasing him.
And there's like, another one has a gourd. And the people who like, think the gourd is the way, start trying to kill the people who think that the shoe is the way. None of it matters. None of it makes, it's just everything that people have invested into it, and now they're willing to kill for it.
Yeah.
And then it just, maybe one of the funniest lines in all of movie history.
Yeah. All
right, you know, I am the Messiah. Now fuck off.
Yeah.
How shall we fuck off, oh Lord? I say you are, and I should know. I've followed a few. And that is just, that sums up religious hypocrisy and religion. And again, it's not making fun of religion. It's saying, hey, can you just
leave me alone?
Take a look at the way you're behaving and how it has nothing to do with what you profess to believe.
Right.
And, you know, and it can do that while also having bits in it that there is a bit in it that no longer, we're not supposed to laugh at this bit anymore.
Oh,
but
I know what you're talking about.
I want to be a woman.
How can you be a woman with no womb?
From now on, call me Loretta.
I love that bit, and here's the thing about Monty Python is the fact that Graham was gay. And they were so comfortable with the fact that he was gay. It's okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, both, I mean, Monty Python in the 70s and then Kids in the Hall in the 90s, because Scott Thompson's gay. A lot of drag. Mm-hmm. A lot of, although I do think Kids in the Hall, they were much better at playing women, because Monty Python, they play women, and they don't talk like this.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly, you know, were exaggerating, you know, but I think it added to what they were doing, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
No, absolutely not. And it never felt disrespectful. And even when there's sketches where there's the sketch where Graham Chapman's on a couch and he's like wooing this woman, and then Eric Idle shows up as somebody from like 2 years ago who he said, oh, we should get a drink sometimes, and he just decides to show up, and then John Cleese shows up, and there's a lot of like misogynistic jokes pointed at the woman, but you never felt like it was supposed to be you're laughing at the misogyny, you're laughing at the misogynist.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah, and see, that's where people in this generation don't understand that's that's what makes it so frustrating to be my age, is that people are so offended by literally everything, and it gets to a point where I look at people my age and they literally get offended by these things that are from years ago, and I'm like, you're not understanding what they're making fun of. They're laughing at the misogynist, not at what they're, you know, saying you're doing.
No,
but like,
Cleese is supposed to be obnoxious
Yeah.
in the sketch. He's not supposed to be like somebody that you want to emulate.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is that's not what, that's not someone that you would want to be, and that's what they're trying to show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people in my age group are missing.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want to be mad, and they just want to, be, warriors of justice and be like, oh, this is wrong, we need to, X this out, we need a cancel culture, this and that. And it's just, it's stupid, because it's like, why are you gatekeeping certain things that you shouldn't be gatekeeping? Because, you obviously aren't understanding, one, you aren't understanding that, emphasis of it. Two, you just need to chill out.
Well, I mean, even stuff that maybe isn't all that nowadays you look at and you're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, that probably, now that wouldn't be okay. But you have to look at it like, one of my favorite quotes about gay people in the media comes from Harvey Fierstein, who there's a great documentary called The Celluloid Closet, where it's just talking about like the history of gay representation in film. And he says, I loved all of it, no matter how offensive it was, no matter how much it was laughing at me, no matter how hurtful it was supposed to be, because he said, I always said representation at any cost. It was better that we would be out there, even if we were being made fun of, than to not exist at all.
Well, right. And, that's the other thing too, is that, Graham, was part of Monty Python, and he wrote some of these sketches that are making fun of, gay or trans or anything like that. And so for these people to get offended by it, that's almost like spitting at Graham's face.
Yeah.
And it's like, you shouldn't sit there and get offended by these sketches when it was written by a gay person.
Well, and it's really hilarious nowadays, because if you talk to like an older gay person, they're just sort of like, we did all of the fighting.
Yeah.
And now we're being told that we didn't do it right, or, that we didn't go far enough, or that we're sellouts. And it's like, I was the one who was getting arrested, and now you guys get to just bitch on TikTok. And
yeah, you get a bitch on TikTok, YouTube, X or
for things
Twitter
that,
or whatever.
For things that like not that long ago would have ruined somebody's life.
Yeah, it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Like, seriously, there were people getting killed, not even that long ago, just for being gay. Like, it wasn't even that long ago when we couldn't even have gays in the military. Don't ask, don't tell.
That was, I was a kid when that was a thing.
Yeah, it was still a thing, up until, I graduated. There were things that, there were things that were still in place, that these people just aren't understanding. That, yes, fight for rights, always. But don't sit there and take the credit away from the people who have been fighting longer than you.
Well, it's like when when you hear there's a great clip on YouTube where Jennifer Lawrence is being interviewed, and she talks about how she was the first female action hero ever when she did the Hunger Games. You never put a woman in an action movie, and this was the first time. And it's like, Kill Bill was like not that long ago. Alien was 1979.
Catwoman,
and
Wonder Woman.
All of these things, but she's like, well, yeah, but that's from a long time ago. I'm talking about like that didn't exist because I wasn't there for it.
Well, I can't stand her. She is.
I can't either.
She's so arrogant and ignorant and so just. She has her blinders on.
Mm-hmm. And it's when you get, I think, people who would look at Monty Python and go, well, I mean, I don't see what's so funny about Graham Chapman playing this very stuffy military leader with a tutu on. Why is that supposed to be funny? Because it was 1972 and nobody had seen anything like that before.
Yeah, and, you know, we were, let's see, 2 world wars, Korea, Vietnam, Cold War.
Mm-hmm. And
a lot of things to make fun of.
And yes, now we look at that and we're like, I think some people say, well, what's the big deal? The big deal was that at the time you could get in trouble for stuff like this. And Python was just like, we don't care. The BBC was like, no, rein it in, rein it in, rein it in. And Monty Python was just like,
no. They stood up to the man.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the one thing that I love about Monty Python is as silly and as, you know, chaotic as some of their sketches could be, they still did whatever the fuck they wanted to do because they could, you know, basically were like, no, we're gonna do it.
And that leads us neatly into what I think our closing segment should be. What is your favorite Monty Python sketch?
My favorite Monty Python sketch? Oh no. Okay. We've already kind of talked about it a little bit. So there's 2.
Okay.
The spam sketch. And then the lumberjack sketch. I like the spam sketch because I love when the waitress comes out and just goes, we got spam! Spam, spam, spam! And it's just so chaotic because they're just sitting there and being like, well, what do you got to eat? Spam! Just very straight face, just sitting there just, spam! All we have is spam! And that would be me as a waitress. Just like, this is all we have. If you don't like it, get the fuck out. And then I've already talked a little bit about why I love the lumberjack sketch. What about you?
I mean, if we're going for the big ones, like I mentioned before, I think that the slapping with fish is, that will make me giggle every time. I do love Ministry of Silly Walks for how Cleese reacts to it. But if I had one that just always stood out to me that nobody seems to ever talk about, it's Michael Palin and Eric Idle, and they're 2 court barristers. And they're walking down the hall with their stuffy robes and their powdered wigs, and then they just take it off and they just start talking like housewives and like.
Oh my God!
Yes, and you know, and it's so unexpected when they do. Like when I'm watching it, I was like, I don't know where this is going, and then they did that, and it was just like, oh fuck.
I love it.
And I don't know why that one's not considered like one of the big classic ones, because it is so funny and unexpected.
I think it's pretty great, honestly. I forgot about that one too. It's a great one because of the fact that Eric Idle's face, he's just like, he makes some of the greatest faces just because I don't know what it is about him, but like his jawline, like when he just goes, like he just has to push in his lips and he's just like sassy teacher mode, like sassy mom mode.
And that floors me every single time. It does go on a bit long, like a lot of the sketches do, where it's like, oh yeah, you're gay. We've got it. But again, for 1972, 73 to do something like that was, I'm sure there were a lot of people who were hugely offended
Oh,
by
I'm
that
sure they
sketch.
were. I'm sure they were. But you know what? It's great. And you know what? They said fuck you to the man.
Because it's literally like it's taking this British institution and just saying, you know, you're wearing wigs and dresses, right?
Yeah. Oh, the Spanish Inquisition.
Yes.
The Spanish Inquisition. That's another one of my favorite. You never expect the Spanish Inquisition. That's another one of my favorites. Speaking of dresses, when you're speaking of like flailing dresses and shit, that's another one of my favorites. I'm sorry, I have 3.
As the Spanish Inquisition would keep going. Wait, one more.
One more. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
So I'm glad that you suggested this as something, because we haven't really centered on something yet. Like
Yeah.
we talked about different shows, different movies, but Monty Python is now an institution. You see all of the surviving members now, and they're all stuffy old men.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like the men they were making fun of back then.
Yeah, they are.
But when they were young, and when this show came out, I Love Lucy or Andy Griffith, those were shows that you just sort of people would watch, and the family could sit around and watch them, and there's like a warm kind of glow that comes from that. And then there's shows like Monty Python where they just came out and were like, what can we destroy?
Yeah, basically.
What can we just smash?
What chaos can we bring to this world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you gotta love them for that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's really, personality, developing content, honestly.
mm-hmm.
I, suggest, kids watching Monty Python,
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it will give them a great personality. Great sense of
Just
humor.
check your outrage and try to enjoy a show that, if not for them doing that, you wouldn't get to do what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.